this point, being so close to the launch of Black Ops Cold War next week, we're bound to get into some big information here soon enough. But for the fate of Warzone, we talked about this briefly the other day, but since then, some more information has actually come out that compounds on top of what we've recently discussed, but also provides a little bit more clarity on what to expect and when to expect it, as well as, interestingly enough, the rather big implications that some of this stuff may have. Some things that could strengthen the thoughts you already have, or change everything that you thought you knew in regards to Warzone. So naturally, today we're going to be running down this information and then let you know what you need to in relation to the free-to-play hits future within the coming year. As we go along, leave our thoughts down below. Are you looking forward to Warzone's coming future? What do you think will happen in relation to some of these changes? And what would you like to see happen if you could make all these decisions here? As well, if you are new to the channel, do be sure that subscribe button is we're on that road to 400,000 subscribers. And with a new game dropping next week, you know we'll keep you up to date with absolutely everything and anything you need to know. So if you'd like to join the community, I'd love to have you. And finally, if you'd like to support the channel a little further, like Gio, Matt, Tony, Jonte, Dredgen, and Jason already have, you can use code Espresso in the Modern Warfare shop if anything interests you there. It's entirely optional, but if you do decide to, tweet me a picture. I'd love to shout out your generous support. With that said, let's talk about Warzone. So the other day, we talked about some things from the quarterly earnings calls from Activision, in which during that, we learned a little bit about when the first integration for Warzone would take place, that being around DLC 1 in December. Now, as for the start, middle, or end, that's where we're not entirely sure, but we know that that first integration for Warzone will be alongside DLC 1 for Black Ops Cold War. That's confirmed by the official entity that owns Warzone, not just some leaker or an account that was created 48 hours ago stating something that they, air quote, heard from their family member who works at the studio. That was for a little bit of time a pretty big question mark on how things would happen here with Warzone going into the next year, but that question mark still persisted a little further with the integration and how that would work. A lot of hypotheticals were tossed around after that, with some assuming that that would mean we'd get our first introduction of weaponry from Cold War into the game at that point. Others thought that we'd see a full transition from maybe say Modern Warfare's engine to Cold War's engine, completely shifting the dynamic of the game. Others thought maybe it would just be the inclusion of a brand new map for Warzone. Others thought maybe it'd be a map transition, meaning that not all at once everything would change, but maybe one POI added in place of another for a relatively consistent amount of time until it completely was a new map at that point. There are plenty of theories that were thrown out there, but later on in that call, we got a little bit more information that would help up shape the clarity of that statement a little further, when Activision President Rob Kostic noted that all the new Black Ops weapons and operators you unlock in your level 1 to 55 progression will be usable in Black Ops and in Warzone, just like how it works in Modern Warfare. Now that opens up the question about ranking, sure, but it basically confirms that DLC 1's integration will include dumping all of the weapons that we had up until that point of DLC 1 into Warzone from Black Ops Cold War. And that's something that looks to be big first steps in keeping the life cycle alive for Warzone. But the biggest question coming out of that would be, well, how does that work? And that's where the glorious and lucky timing of what we discussed being kind of phased out within less than 2 days, because we got some more compounding information that clarifies that even a little bit further. Over on the forum site of Reset Era, one of the lead artists at Activision simply stated, there will not be an engine shift for Warzone. Now, that in and of itself is pretty big, because that was one of the huge concerns that people had for Warzone, for either better or for worse. Some people think that Modern Warfare's engine is worlds better for the movement and such, while others maybe are more so fans of Cold War. But whatever way you lean in that argument, it'd be objectively a huge shock to go from, say, Modern Warfare's movement and everything to Cold War's and be thrust into it, which is exactly what would happen to millions of free-to-play users. You and I, who maybe buy the game year over year, we learn to get used to that kind of stuff. But for free-to-play users that are used to just that, and that's what they signed up for, changing absolutely everything from the fundamental perspectives would definitely be a little bit of a shock to players. So that stationary position in terms of what engine is going to be used is probably for the best, but at the same time, from a developmental standpoint, that seems to be a logistical nightmare. Porting over every single weapon, and according to prominent leaker Tom Henderson, whose track record is pretty much spot on from all recollections I have, he also stated that it's even to the point where we're going to have multiple of the same weapons, say like a Modern Warfare MP5 and a Cold War MP5, an AK-47 in Modern Warfare and an AK-47 from Black Ops Cold War, and other weapons alike that may have crossover, but apparently these will be laid out in pretty much plain as day fashion so that there's no mistake you're going to be picking up either the Cold War version or the Modern Warfare version, but still, that's just so strange to me. That also, though, would end up lining up from some things we've heard with Activision President Rob Kostich earlier in that call, and clarifies a little bit further on what that could have meant, in which he ended up mentioning that players would be able to use their Modern Warfare loadouts or their Cold War loadouts in Warzone, which at the time of hearing that was incredibly confusing, and still kind of is to a point, but at least now that makes sense that if we do have duplicate weapons and everything is ported over, that might mean that you have the opportunity to use basically either system you want. But that's a little bit more clarity in terms of what we had in relation to, say, some of the integration. But then the next big question is, what's the next big step for Warzone? Not necessarily just continuing how it's supported in terms of new weaponry and everything like that, but the long-standing rumor that we'll see a new Warzone map. When is that going to happen? Well, again, because of that beautiful timing and new information coming out right after making that video that we talked about a couple of days ago, we do have a little bit more information to discuss here at this, in which now it's rumored to be in early 2021. Reported on by VGC, who have been correct in the past, and also rumored by leaker Modern Warzone to be in March, which would be around that 1 year mark from when the launch of Warzone first happened. So even that first integration means that we won't see anything new in terms of the world of Verdansk, and that's something that may be, again, hit or miss depending on how you look at it. Maybe you think that's a good thing, where we get another larger drop for Warzone later on in the year, or maybe you're bummed that you don't have anything right up front here with that. I can see both sides of that perspective, but this lines up then with potentially that 1 year mark of Warzone, where it shifts to then an off-balance release schedule, where we don't have Warzone being a part of that normal premium cycle, where something launches every October and November. Instead, this looks to change up that COD cycle a little bit, where everything then would die in the spring, and we'd have months upon months to wait until the next big thing, or a beta, or even that full launch. But that may not be the case here at this. Warzone's introduction may actually look to change that up. But while we have so much time still until then, I mean, if we go again until March, that's another 4 months here until we'd see theoretically a new map in Warzone. That's a lot of time of theoretically nothing really happening for Warzone players. Yes, the premium players will have a brand new game to play around with, new multiplayer experiences, new weapons, new camo challenges, new everything that comes along with that on top of, say, zombies and campaign. But for Warzone players, that's a lot of time for nothing. But is that the only thing we'll be getting? Because that might actually then lead to a further hint that we could be seeing that Rebirth Island, that repurposed Alcatraz that we had found in the game files for Warzone. That could be something that happens as of maybe even the end of this season, and could be in conjunction with the launch of Black Ops Cold War. That is very big speculation, but it leaves the door open, and it's something that, in the grand scheme of things, isn't the craziest thing to put out there, because we've already seen these items introduced within Season 6's Reloaded update, and with all our intel kind of culminating in a sort of event happening, with that getting so much closer to finishing all the intel items in Warzone, plus then having this in the game files and on the horizon, it is very interesting to me. So maybe that's something that tides us over, but for now it looks like the big things are, one, Modern Warfare's engine isn't going anywhere for Warzone, or I guess maybe you could even consider it as Warzone's engine isn't going anywhere. We're gonna have what we have in Warzone, but just weapons added into Warzone, so you don't have to really get ready for any learning curve if you're a free-to-play player or you only want to play Warzone. That's not going anywhere, and also it looks like if you're looking for a new map, some new environment to explore around, a new world, you gotta wait a little bit longer, it seems. Q1, Q2 of 2021. So that's some big stuff that seems to be happening here within the distant future of Warzone, but also again with that Rebirth Island idea, maybe not so distant future as well. That's where we're gonna wrap it up. Wanted to clarify a little bit and add on to what we discussed a few days ago. So let me know your thoughts down below. Are you looking forward to these changes in Warzone? When do you think they'll happen? What do you think will happen? Anything in between, feel free to drop it down below. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. We're getting all things Black Ops Cold War here. We got a launch coming up very soon. We'll keep you up to date with everything Warzone, and of course, in the meantime, as well, some Modern Warfare stuff. If you're interested, hit that subscribe button. If you also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Probably live on both those. If you guys want to start a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.